Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today we're going to talk about how to find fall bass and one of my favorite secrets to finding some of these fall bass, how it's really easy to find them. You might not catch a lot of fish doing what we're going to talk about today, but you're going to catch some big ones, and it's going to be very predictable on where to find these bass. We're going to go over everything, showing you pictures of Navionics, what you should be looking for on your graph, types of baits you should be using, all that stuff you need to know in today's video, so stay tuned and let's get right into it. Before we get into today's video, this portion of the video is brought to you by the Deep Dive app. What the Deep Dive app is a app that you can type in your lake, conditions, anything else you have out there on the water, and it will provide you some options to use out there on the water. So today we're going to be talking about a lake up in New York. We're going to go ahead and pick this one right here, and then you can actually pick on the patterns that are available to you. There's not a whole lot of information about this lake out there today, but some lakes have more than others. So one of the baits we're actually going to talk about today, though, is going to be the square bill crankbait as an option on how to catch some of these fish when you do find them. It has clear water, so I can pick the square bill crankbait. It has an 8 out of 10 on effectiveness. It has the color you should use, locations you should fish it, types of Navionics examples that you should look at, how you should retrieve that bait, and the gear that you need. It'll have everything you need to catch more fish on your local body of water. So if you want to support the channel, the link will be down in the description below and you can download the app today. All right, so for starters, let's talk about what I'm looking for to find these fall bass. This is mostly going to be for the earlier fall, but it will transition into like the mid-fall until it starts to get too cold and those fish will start to transition back offshore. We're going to be looking very shallow for these fish. And this is going to be more of a turnover technique. So if you have already had the turnover happen, some of those fish could still be lingering up there. If your fall turnover hasn't happened yet, those will start to appear here very shortly. What we're going to be doing is looking for areas of influx of cold water, oxygenated water, stuff like that. That's what those fish are going to relate to. In the fall, what happens in turnover is the coldest water in the summer is actually down deep. That's why a lot of your fish go offshore. Coldest, most oxygenated water is out offshore. As you start to have those colder nights, you have those 50, 40 degree nights, that surface temp starts to become the colder water, and the lake will actually flip. That's what turnover is. So the coldest water will actually become the top of the water, and the warmer water will start to happen out deep here because that warmer water will start to move out and the surface temp will be colder. So those fish will either suspend, or the fish that we're going to target will go right to the bank where the coldest water is. And that's why you get that big push of shallow fish in the fall, where they weren't there all summer and now all of a sudden there's some big fish shallow. It's because the coldest, most oxygenated water is up there, and that's what those fish need in the fall. The other thing that that's going to bring is a ton of bait up shallow, and that's where those fish are going to live. Their main objective is to put on enough weight to survive all winter, so they're going to look for as much bait as they can, chase it down, eat it, and that's what they're looking for. So if all your bait fish are going to flood shallow where that colder water is, all your fish are going to follow that as well. And it's going to make it very easy to find those fish. Now, they're not just going to be anywhere shallow. We're going to break down some Navionics charts here in just a second, but we're going to show you where these fish will migrate and congregate at. They'll actually gang up in very small areas because certain things will create more cold water, shallow water areas. So the first thing, let's go ahead into our Navionics here. I utilize the Navionics web app right on my phone here. So if you just type in Navionics chart viewer, it'll come right up, and then we'll go ahead and head up to our lake up north here. Now, there's a couple things that I really look for this time of year to draw those fish in. Number one, I've already done a video on it at the river. It plays in more places than the river, and that's going to be a creek mouth. So we're going to find one right here on Navionics. If I zoom in right here, you can see that this creek mouth is coming in. It creates a point. So not only does it have an ambush spot where they can sit on that point and feed on bait fish, but that creek is always going to have colder water than the main lake, because overnight when those temperatures are dropping, that water's colder than the lake, and it's pumping it in fresh, cold, oxygenated water right within that zone right there. So it could be a couple docks to the left, a couple docks to the right, right on the point, but that general area is going to have colder, more oxygenated water. So even than the rest of the bank, if they're on docks, the best docks will be these ones right next to the dock or the point, because those will have the bait in the area. So that's the kind of stuff that I'm looking for. You could fish all of these docks down through this bay here, and you might not catch as many fish, but if you catch a bunch of fish right there, it's because that cold water is coming in. The other thing that you're going to look for is places where these fish summer, just nearby areas where it's a lot shallower and colder water. So very popular area on this lake is this right here. And those fish will live offshore on the tip of this point. They'll live on the deep grass edge out here, all that kind of stuff. They'll live in that deeper water. Well, for them, all these buoys mark a big rock line there, old rock, boulders, stuff that's down there from over time. It's a natural lake. Those fish just have to slide right up this point. All the bait is going to come up shallow onto this flat as well and get that colder water, and those fish are going to move up there with them and kind of chase them around that flat and just migrate up and down that flat chasing bait fish. Those ones are going to be a little bit harder to catch than the creek mouth fish, because those fish, you're going to actually have to cover a bunch of water on those flats to find the active ones. And where they are there today, they might be on a different area of that flat the next day. They might not be on that flat at all. They're going to move around and just chase bait. That's the biggest thing that you have to pay attention to in the fall, is while they are going to chase that colder water, they're going to chase the bait. So if there's no bait there, the fish aren't going to be there either. A lot of times you're going to have to pay attention to the wind direction this time of year, which direction it's blowing and pushing the bait. So if it's blowing from the west into the east, this could be a really good bank. You could have fish piling up there. The bait could be coming in there. If not, you could have this flat. If it's blowing the opposite direction, you could have this big flat right here. All the fish could just be on that side of the lake. Now, I'm not saying they'll swim across the lake each day. Those fish just might move back out and suspend, or kind of move to a different area if the bait isn't there and as congregated by the wind. These ones just might be more active and easier to catch because the wind would be blowing this direction instead. So those are some things to pay attention to when you're looking for some fall bass. And then when it comes to bait selection, there's a million things you can choose from. I have a whole table full of baits here that we're talking through a bunch of different videos all day today. But spinner baits, chatter baits, crank baits, anything that mimics bait fish is really what I'm going to go for. You'll notice a lot of these are white and chartreuse, stuff like that. That's the colors that I'm going to go for this time of year because, again, they're chasing bait fish. They're going to look for as much as they can. So while they might chase little perch around and eat them if they have the opportunity, or a bluegill, if they can find a ton of shad in one general area, they're going to go for that 9 times out of 10 because they can put more weight on with those than they can chasing down 1 or 2 bluegills here and there. So that's what I really like to fish. Anything big and shad oriented this time of year. It's going to catch a lot of fish, and it's going to catch you some big fish as well. So I basically mix it up however you want. You could do crankbaits, you could do spinnerbaits, you could do topwaters even, are a great one. That's just the general way that I'm going to approach these fish and try and catch some bigger ones. Like I said, on that flat there, when they're sitting on that big shallow flat, you might have to cover that whole flat to find where those fish actually are. Where on that creek mouth, you could throw something more finesse in there because they're going to be within a small little section. On that big flat, it would take forever to cover all of that with a finesse bait. So I throw on those power fishing baits and cover a bunch of water. You're going to have fish that are more active this time of year anyway, so they're going to be willing to chase bait. All they care about is eating food. Look for those fish up shallow with that fresh influx of oxygenated water, the coldest water. Once that happens, up here in Pennsylvania, that happens at the low 70s, high 60-degree water temperature. I can't guarantee that's going to happen the same everywhere. Our temperature never gets to 90-degree water temperature. Turnover might actually happen in Florida or Texas in the 80-degree or high 70-degree range because their water gets up into the 90-degree mark. Ours does not. Ours happens in that 70 to high 60-degree range. I see it every single year. Those fish will turn on like a light switch. Usually it happens at the end of September into the beginning of October, depending on how our weather is going. So hope you guys enjoyed today's video, looking at some of those areas. I wish I could have been out there on the water actually walking you through some of those areas, but like I said, my boat is still in the shop. But if you want to see what baits you should be throwing besides some of the ones I had talked about here, check out this best baits for October video. That's when that transition happens, and I geared that video straight up towards the fall transition and turnover. Hit that subscribe button down below, and thanks for watching.